talk about the veer finish where Kemba Walker, we can see right now, is getting downhill. And essentially, all we're doing is initiating contact by stepping into a different direction. So you can see Steve Nash is stepping downhill first, right here with that left foot. That left foot gets downhill first, and now he's going to go ahead and step in with his right foot to initiate contact. And as he does so, he's kind of getting the shot blocker's rhythm and momentum from being able to go up vertical and blocking that shot. And now he's able to separate away from length to be able to go ahead and convert on that finish. We see the same thing here, except this one is a little bit different. This is actually a little bit more advanced, a little bit tougher. The first two veers were essentially kind of stepping laterally or to the side if your defender is kind of on your hip. But this time we can see Kemba Walker as he's getting downhill. He almost just kind of stops or almost steps backwards a little bit. You can see his defender is trailing him just slightly, so he kind of negates his momentum, that shot blocker's rhythm, by not necessarily stepping back, but still kind of initiating contact going backwards. You can see right here the angle of his body, his shoulder is obviously somewhat past his foot right here to again just try to bump that shot blocker who's trailing him just for a second so that he can continue to extend to the basket and try to get the foul. Again, we see Steve Nash with the same concept, just almost kind of swinging that shoulder back and just bumping that defender so that we can really negate their momentum. Same concept, just a different angle on the bump. Now we have here the quick stop finish where Kemba Walker right now is going to aggressively drive by his defender, obviously trying to cut his defender off before his defender can cut him off. And as we see Kemba get completely in front of Julius Randle in this case, you can see how he kind of quickly just gets both feet set. So he is going off of 2 feet. He's getting both feet quickly set. And because of the kind of timing of that stride, you can see right here as Kemba's going into his drive right here, his strides are pretty wide, they're pretty long, but as he goes into his pickup, it's a quick abrupt stop to where he just is stopping on the dime. That defender has to be able to react accordingly, and because most of the time defenders aren't expecting that and aren't able to put the brakes on as quickly, you end up getting run over as an offensive player, and you're able to draw a lot of cheap fouls like that. You can see Isaiah Thomas doing the same thing here. You can hop into it, you can go 1-2 into it. The concept is still the same. Again, you can go with a floater, you can go with a finish at the rim, but essentially you're finishing off of 2 feet. Again, you can go 1-2 into it, or you hop into it, but finishing off of 2 feet by getting in front of that defender and getting to a quick abrupt stop. Really, really effective finish for you smaller guards who want to draw quick and easy fouls, really get the defenders into foul trouble. And right here, we can see obviously Kobe Bryant is not a small guard by any means, but these are still concepts that we can take to apply to your own game as small guards. As a small guard, you are definitely going to need different types of floaters and runners to be able to finish over top of length. And one of the main things to go along with that is just understanding one, when to use them. Obviously, whether you should be one step in front of the free throw line, whether you can get a little bit deeper. With more experience, you will be able to go ahead and kind of gauge when that defender is going to be rotating over and when you should be able to kind of get that floater off. But also just understand how to master your touch, and a big key to mastering your touch, you can see right here, are these open hand releases, not necessarily following through and like snapping your wrist as you would with a typical jump shot, but just being able to kind of let it roll off of your fingers so we can get good amount of arc on it, but more importantly, just that nice soft touch. You can see Jamal Murray right here, just as he releases that ball, he kind of pulls that hand back right here just ever so slightly, just so he can really kind of get the right amount of touch onto it. We don't want to snap our wrist too hard and get too much backspin when we're in these type of situations, because might end up shooting the ball a little bit too hard, and obviously we want that nice soft touch on these floaters. So another type of floater, again, there are so many different types of floaters and runners which we will not go over. It will be on you guys to obviously figure out what works best for your game, and throughout the workouts, if anybody decides to obviously come and train with us, we will be covering tons of different types of floaters, but just showing you guys just one example of something that a lot of small guards around the NBA really like to use is this kind of recline finish where you can see that Chris Paul is accelerating to the basket. Let me go back to this Chris Paul clip real quick. We can see as he's accelerating to the basket, he's obviously putting his head down. He's trying to get to the basket quickly and aggressively, boom, which forces the defender to have to open up his hips and try to keep up with him. But as he gets into his gather step, as he gets into that last gather step, that second step after the gather, he kind of puts the brakes on and he's almost kind of fading his shoulders back. So he's going backwards or straight up while this defender is sliding in front of him, thinking that Chris Paul was just going to get to the basket. So similar, you can see the change of pace is a very, very similar theme with all these different finishes that we've done so far. But just combining that change of pace with a floater, it's really, really hard to guard. Another finish that we're going to talk about, same finishes where you are essentially just going to be jumping off of the same foot as your ball side foot. So if you're driving to the right, you're dribbling with the right hand. In this case, you can see Steve Nash. The last foot to leave the ground is his right foot, and he does so in this case with 2 feet on the ground. So he goes left, right, and because he's doing this, jumping off the ball side foot, he's disrupting the shot blocker's timing. So shot blockers expecting him to jump off that inside foot, like a very traditional finish would be. But because he's going off that outside foot, and in this case, because he's kind of stretching that ball towards the basket and away from that defender, you can see that his shoulders are kind of rotating just slightly to be able to keep this defender on his hip, on his back, and behind him as he extends to the rim. Very, very hard shot to block. Another variation we can get into is this kind of show and extend where he shows that ball first and then extends away from his body. We can see Cassius Winston right here doing the same thing by initiating contact as well. But same deal, he jumps off that outside foot, that ball side foot, and as he does so, shows that ball to really kind of get that defender to bite and then extends away from the length to be able to convert on that finish. So again, that type of finish, those same variations. There's a ton of other variations we can do, going same foot, same hand. But that's a very, very important finish to have as a small guard to be able to disrupt, like we talked about, disrupting that shot blocker's timing and being able to convert on those finishes. So one of the tougher things that as guards in general, especially you younger guards, let alone small guards, is just understanding when to pass and when to score, right? As you're driving, when do you know whether to kick the ball out, whether throw a lob, dump the ball down, or when when to shoot that floater, finish at the rim, so on and so forth. And short answer is just to play more, train more, and those decision-making patterns are going to be a lot more evident with more experience. But just as a rule of thumb, is just really realizing if a defender is going to commit or not. If you see a defender commit, whether in that last case it was a strong side corner defender, or in this case we have DeAndre Jordan, who's a big and just kind of below the rim, and you can make these little dump down passes. It's just that stuff comes with experience. But again, if you can see when a defender is going to rotate over and commit to you, where there's you can actively see their chest is coming in front of you and they're not just kind of stunting and kind of faking like they're going to help, that is a very important kind of distinction to make, again, which will come with more experience. As we talk about isolation basketball now, one of the biggest things to understand is when will we get into ISO situations. Again, kind of knowing when to run your offense for your team and when to go ahead and try to make a play for yourself or for your teammates by going to a quick isolation situation where with ISOs, it's going to be a kind of system by system basis. Maybe your coach will give you more freedom, maybe your coach will give you less freedom depending on what type of system you're playing in, but either way you're going to have to adjust to what your coach wants, obviously. And but what will help you guys understand when to go into ISO situation or not is just understanding these 4 main situations, which are going to be, let me fast forward this a little bit, which are going to be come down transition. So, when you come down transition, defense isn't completely set yet, which leaves, opportunities for you to be able to attack gaps and be able to get into the paint And right here we see ball reversals where as his ball is swung over to Davion Mitchell, now we can see, all right, now there's space, there's gaps to be played. Defenders are still kind of not really in position. They're more so pressed up along the line, pressed up along the line right here, one pass away. So now that leaves these gaps to be attacked. And note the phenomenal spacing by Baylor right now. Spacing is absolutely crucial. But we can see this ball reversal left a good opportunity for him to get downhill with a quick ISO situation. We can see right here, this is a switch. So when we do switch onto a defender who we feel like we can take advantage of. And last but not least, late clock situations, which kind of speak for themselves, just trying to be able to make something out of nothing when we are in those late clock situations. So those are the main four situations where isolation basketball is probably most prevalent. You probably don't want to just come down the beginning of the shot clock or game clock and start going into a bunch of 8 dribble combinations where defense is set, and they're going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot easier for them to be able to close those gaps onto you and make it hard for you to get into the paint. So another thing that we're going to talk about is maintaining tight driving lanes. And before we even get into the moves and concepts, which you will, but just understanding that whatever move you do, you can, there are a million and one moves you can get into, but understanding that you need to be able to try to get downhill as efficiently as possible and not get pushed to these gap defenders. If Sharif Cooper right now, he does a great job of obviously trying to cut his defender off and try to initiate contact with his primary defender so that you can see this defender is, obviously in a compromised position, hips turn, trying to play catch up. And if he was to allow right now his defender to push him towards his help defender, then he's not going to be able to make as effective of a play getting downhill. But because he was able to get into that defender's hips and be able to really initiate contact against that defender on the drive, not getting pushed out to those help defenders, to those gap defenders, allows him to be able to go ahead and make that play. We see the same thing here with Steph. Doesn't make the layup, which we can even talk about right here as well. So he's getting pressured right here, and he is able to get past his defender. Again, you see that inside shoulder dropping to really get some leverage. So he's not getting, again, pushed out towards Dragic right now, this gap defender. Right, he's pushed over here, then he's not going to be able to do anything. But because he's dropping that inside shoulder, being aggressive, trying to cut his defender off, now he's able to get into the paint and draw help. And realistically, in my opinion, the only reason he didn't make this, it was a lot tougher for him because he didn't really have any options. Varejao is whoever this guy is, he was supposed to be. Varejao probably should have just circled over to his open area right here, but because he rotates over, rotating defender comes over, and there is no really option over here, he's forced to have to throw up a tough layup. But again, Varejao's here, he can probably make a dump down pass, or even if Varejao's here, and this defender helps over, he can make a skip pass over to that player on the wing over there. So just understand defensive rotations as well, which goes back into obviously our decision making. But you can see here being physical with the with that off arm as well to again be able to cut our primary defender off, which will make it a lot harder for these gap defenders to be able to come over and help, especially if you do have good shooters on your team. But either way, you can see that Trae Young, small guard, obviously, is able to get into this whole open area right here because of his physicality to get that defender off of him with that off-arm swipe right there, maintaining an active off-arm and able to get downhill. So we're going to finally talk about the moves, the concepts, right, the footwork. And without diving too deep into these float dribbles, we're essentially just getting the basketball outside of the defender's frame. So as this basketball is getting outside the defender's frame, one, you can see Chris Paul, in this case, is more so like a misdirection one where his body shifts away from the basketball. But the same concept goes where that basketball is still outside that defender's hips. Now forces the defender to make a decision. We can see right here, as Chris Paul's feet are in the air on that little float dribble, right here, boom, his feet are in the air, forces the defender to have to make a decision. Does he stay back? Does he slide over? Does he close out? What is he doing? This allows Chris Paul to be able to gauge that while his feet are in the air, allows him to buy time to make a decision, so that when his feet do land, he's able to go ahead and attack and make a quick decision. So really, really effective move for those of you who are more comfortable with these type of setups. So this is a very, very common one. Next one we're going to see is a delayed explosion, where essentially we're just going to go ahead and let that basketball kind of hit that opposite hand right here. You can see he allows that basketball to hit his opposite hand right here, boom, and now he goes ahead and takes off downhill, as opposed to traditionally just kind of splitting our feet or attacking downhill first before that ball hits our opposite hand, and just kind of going one speed, if you will. We see Kemba again. He is just being patient, slow between the legs. In this case, it could be behind the back, it could be even crossover, whatever you want to do right there. All right, allows that ball to hit his opposite hand, just being patient. And by being patient right here, notices that this defender's top foot is his left foot right now, just goes ahead and explodes right past it into the bucket. And these are a lot of, these are just three options that we're going to go into. You see right here with this low step. Right here as a third option, we can see that he's pushing off his back foot right now, pushing off that left foot in this case, planting on that right foot to really sell that drive and decelerate. And you see Jrue Holiday shifting over right now, and then goes ahead and changes directions off of that. Same thing here. You see Kyrie. He's doing this in transition like we talked about, a great opportunity. You can see that there are, defense isn't fully set yet. Gaps are available right here where he can go outside, he can go inside. There's space to attack. So he pushes off with that opposite foot, that left foot right here, decelerates and plants with that right foot to where he's really selling that drive. And that allows him to be able to change directions to attack this top foot of Corey Joseph, which right now is that right foot, and gets downhill, avoids those gap defenders like we talked about. Didn't make the layup, but again, still a good drive. And we see Steve Nash right here, same concept, right? So that ability to get into those ISO situations, it doesn't really matter what footwork you use. It's really just about experimenting with those. You probably are going to use some combination of all three to fit in your game, but more than likely one will be a little bit more dominant, a little bit more prevalent, something that you feel more comfortable with, and that's perfectly fine. It's just about finding what works for you, but understanding those concepts that we talked about at the beginning of knowing when to do them, and knowing that when you do get into them, how to avoid getting pushed over to those gap defenders as a smaller guard who may not be as physical or strong. So we're going to talk about handling pressure now, and we can see right here, just going back to the beginning a little bit with these load steps that we talked about earlier, right? We can see right here, Zion plants that ball side foot, and just a lot with his feet being on the ground, we can see this defender is shuffling over while his ball handler's feet are on the ground, and that allows him to be able to quickly change directions. Again, all our goal as a ball handler who is handling pressure is to keep the ball protected while we're making good decisions. So by keeping the ball protected, we can either, one, keep a ball-me-man relationship, which we'll talk about in a second. Right here, we can see that it's a ball-me-man situation where our body is shielding the basketball, and we'll talk about another option right here. You can see just as quickly as a blink of an eye, he flips his stance, and this is still a fairly protected position. What you may think it's exposed right now, but we can see that that basketball is outside the defender's frame. So, the defender's hands are right here, right here. That basketball is outside that defender's frame and back a little bit. So it's going to be really, really hard for him to, if that defender keeps his feet still right here, to be able to reach. So we need to be able to protect the basketball in an open stance, as you see right here, and a closed stance with that ball-me-man relationship. And again, being able to make good decisions. We see the double coming. We're able to kick to the weak side and be able to, keep running offense or attack, any deficiencies in the defense from there. We see same thing with Devin Booker. Again, just keeping the basketball outside of the defender's frame or keeping it protected. So we're keeping it protected right now. He runs outside that defender's frame, which you see forces that defender to have to start opening up to kind of catch up and stay in front. And now, look, we've relieved pressure. We set ourselves up and put ourselves in a good position to be able to come off this ball screen now. And again, I mean, for Devin Booker, this is a good decision. So just another move that we can get into to quickly go from protected to open. We're in this protected stance right now, this closed stance. And he goes with this quick hip swivel to quickly flip his hips open to get square, get downhill, and obviously still outside of his defender's frame to be able to get downhill for the finish. You can see right here, PG coming off this pin down. Just another counter off of the hip swivel just to be able to change directions, go the opposite way. Same concept. Same thing right here. We talked about being square, keeping that basketball outside the defender's frame, kind of pocketed back in this situation right here. So again, he is square, but he is most certainly in this case not exposing that basketball. So he's able to make that read, get outside his defender's hips, get downhill to be able to make that strong corner kick out. Lastly, we have to, as small guards, be a technician with ball screens. And one of those things that comes along with being a technician is just understanding coverages. For most high school youth basketball players, you are going to see a hedge coverage most of the time where the screener's defender is obviously right up on the your screener's back and really trying to round you out. So you have to understand those coverages to understand, hey, how can I get around this screen? This hedge? How can I get through this hedge with this split as we see right here with Nash? And then we have to understand how the defense is going to rotate. There's another way of being able to get around. You can see just kind of floating and getting our hips square around that hedge, which kind of turns into a switch, but you can still see this aggressive hedge or switch. He's able to flip his hips open and allows him to be able to square up, get that rescreen. Doesn't make the shot, but still just showing you the footwork. So understanding the coverages, how the screen's defender is going to play you, but more importantly, how the back line is going to play you, because this is going to be pretty obvious, but it's really important to understand how the back line is going to play you. So now we have a 2-on-1 situation right here where there's two defenders, one offensive player. We have to understand how to take advantage of that. We go ahead and just go with this hook pass over the top, making sure we can get that pass over top of length right here. We have Kendrick Nunn with active high hands right here, but Trae Young's able to make a really, really good pass to be able to get that pass over top his defenders right here, not making just like an obvious chest pass. So understanding angles on the passes as well. Right here, we see Devin Booker comes off this screen right here. Notices there's a tag, so this corner defender, Ricky Rubio's defender, comes over and takes away this roll. Otherwise, that would be an easy lob. And because that happens, now we get Ricky Rubio on that hook pass, or excuse me, on that jump pass for an easy three. So understanding what type of passes we want to make, understanding the reads to who we're going to pass it to. In this case, we can see as Trae Young comes off this screen right here, instead of trying to make a really, really hard play, he kicks over to his strong side corner right here, which allows this little swing action to be able to hit John Collins, to where obviously Trae Young doesn't make that play in terms of making the assist, but he makes the pass which leads to an assist. So a lot of different things that go into it, but really understanding the coverages, how the defense is going to play it, and understanding how the rotations are going to occur, and also understanding the angles that we need to make passes from and the reads to which we need to make. Obviously, there's scoring reads, passing reads, but we need to really understand the nuances of all those things, and those are the makings. Being a ball screen technician is a huge role that a small guard needs to be able to start in if you want to have any chance of playing at a high level. So this is a fairly in-depth breakdown, but if you guys have any questions about how to succeed as a small guard, obviously feel free to reach out to me, DLAM Training on Instagram and pretty much every other social media handle. I'm completely open to answering any questions that you guys may have, and I appreciate you guys tuning into this. I hope that you guys may have gotten something out of this to help your game, and you guys have a good one. Appreciate y'all.